No, the Green Bay Packers can't rely solely on turnovers defensively, but we also can't just dismiss it either. This is part of their identity. Plus, our pal Lily Zhao joins us a day early today on Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. The turnovers have been dismissed as unsustainable by some. Or at the very least, they've been downplayed. Hey, the Packers can't continue to live like this. And at a certain point, I agree. But we also spent months and really over a year going back to last season, because at the beginning of last season, when the Cleveland Browns got off to the start that they got off to, we spent a lot of time on this show talking about an attitude adjustment, a philosophical realignment. And Jim Schwartz did that in Cleveland. And we went, okay, Jeff Hafley, it's a more attacking style of defense. We thought it would create more pressure than it has. That's still something that I believe is coming. But Matt LaFleur, this was just a little nugget. There is apparently been the institution of a special Thursday meeting. Now, LaFleur said there's always been some version of this where they've looked at, a cut up of plays from around the league creating turnovers, or a clinic tape of a Packers player. He called Evan Williams peanut punch clinic tape. This year, they have a special meeting dedicated to turnover creation. This is part of who they are. And let me take you back. Viking fans will be very happy to hear me talking about the Vikings. After that game, watching that tape, it struck me how every pass was contested, seemingly. That wasn't actually true, but it felt that way. And how at every tackle attempt, there was either someone making the tackle and someone else punching for the ball, or there was just, hey, it's me and you one-on-one, and I'm just going to punch that out. That was the Byron Murphy, Tucker Kraft peanut punch. It was just me versus him. And he did the thing, right? Over the last couple weeks, we've seen this Packers defense evolve even further, where we're seeing more of that simulated pressure, causing confusion at the snap. We're seeing more of the pressure looks, the blitz looks. We're seeing more double mug, where both linebackers are walked up over the center. We saw Rashawn Gary and Edgerrin Cooper walked up over the center. And that's apparently something they're going to do even more of, to move Rashawn Gary around, to move, I would assume, give Lucas Van Ness more opportunities. They've used Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper a ton. A week ago against the Rams, they blitzed Javon Bullard from the slot 5 times. They've already blitzed defensive backs more in 6 games this season than the entirety of last season. When it is a mentality, when it is a philosophy, when it becomes a part of your DNA, and you're good at it, It's not that you can win solely based on that, because you're still going to have to get stops. They still needed to get a stop at the end of the game against the LA Rams. There's still going to be moments in every game where you just have to get a stop. But the Packers look better equipped today than they did 3 weeks ago, a year ago, to get those stops, even if drive to drive, they are relying heavily on turnovers. If you look at their EPA per play, they are 8th in EPA per play. That is 20th if you exclude turnovers. But you can't just exclude them when they're the best team in the league at doing it. And this had a different connotation week 1, week 2, week 3, right? Because the small sample size bias will get you. If you go for 3 games, you beat a couple bad teams, backup quarterback, you get a little bit lucky with some turnovers, but this wasn't like the ball bouncing the right way and all this fumble luck and all that stuff. Now, they did get lucky with some fumble luck against the Cardinals where you create all of these fumbles and you recover all of them. But if you're creating all of these fumbles, you're giving yourselves opportunities. They didn't need the big interception from Xavier McKinney against the Cardinals to shut down a top 10 offense. The success rate numbers are not good. They're 28th overall in success rate, 30th in success rate per dropback. But also part of that is the style that they play. They are willing to give you 4-yard runs and 6-yard completions because they think their philosophy is going to create negative plays. And so what's really interesting about this to me, and for those of you who can see me, you see what my face looks like. For those of you who can't, I have a wry smile on my face right now. Understand what I'm about to say. Joe Barry had a similar approach. Now, okay, relax, but understand. What Joe Barry was saying is no big plays, and we think you're going to make a mistake. We think we can create a negative play for you, or you're going to get a holding penalty, or you're going to drop a pass. It was a very passive way to play and ultimately arrive at a similar kind of style. We'll let you dink and dunk your way down the field. The only drives, really, where the Cardinals could get anything going were in the second half when the Packers were dropping and allowing the Cardinals to complete underneath. There was one drive where they attacked Green Bay's linebackers, and they didn't even score a touchdown. There was one drive where they did score a touchdown, but it was on 2 chunk plays. And they attacked the Packers linebackers. But the rest of their productivity, and they only had 300 yards in the game. And I say only, but we're talking about a top 10 offense, helmed by Kyler Murray, one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league. When you actively seek to create negatives, when you want to create splash plays for yourself, when you scheme them up, when you're creating confusion, like Joe Barry just wanted to go out and play and say, we think you're going to screw up. We have better players. And he was just wrong. That's not the way that the world works anymore. It was sort of, in a way, the defensive version of the Mike McCarthy offense. Hey, it's just going to be us versus you. And we think our guys are better. In a lot of ways, that was the Legion of Boom defense, which is a little bit ironic because that's the tree that Jeff Hafley comes from. That's the tree that Robert Saleh comes from. I think Jeff Hafley is more closely aligned with the Mike Pettin defense. We've talked about this. If you really go back and look at it and where his college background is, it's much more man coverage. It's much more blitz heavy. We're seeing that lately, much more man coverage. Cover 1 blitzes where you're sending 6. Cover 0. They haven't done a ton of cover 0, but the opportunities that they're creating are by design. So when we talk about this defense, it is built in that they are trying to create these negative plays, that they are aiming for the splash plays, and they are practicing it. They are working on it. And look, every defense is like, they do the punch the ball drill, and they do the fumble recovery drills. But this is a different animal, and they've added players who clearly just have a nose for the football. Edgerrin Cooper has a nose for the ball. Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, they have noses for the football, and we already knew Jay Alexander, what he was capable of. So when you have those guys and you emphasize it the way that the Packers do, the way that the Packers have, and you have an offense that is as good as Green Bay has, then it's not only do we think we can be more efficient than you with our offense versus your offense, but we think we can create more explosives on our offense, and we think we can create more explosives with our defense. It is taking a very offensive-centric approach, which makes sense because it's Matt LaFleur as the head coach. He told me, I played the clip on the show, go look at the drive data, and he's right. You are significantly more likely to score points on a drive where you had an explosive play. And while I haven't seen the data on defense, my guess is you are much more likely to get a stop when you create an explosive play, whether it's a sack, whether it's a forced fumble because you could recover it. Even if you don't, it's probably a good play for the defense, whether it's a tackle for loss, whether it's a run stop even, whether it's it's 2nd and 10 and you get a PBU. In a lot of ways, that's an explosive play for your defense. It's a splash play. And of course, an interception ends a drive. So it's taking the mindset of the offense that says, hey, we want to generate explosives and flipping it to the defensive side of the ball. It's a really cool reframing of this. And even though they haven't explicitly stated it, that's kind of how this is cashed out. And I frankly think it can keep working. All right, Lily Zhao joins us to talk about a Cardinals win, to talk about a Texans team. We get ready in earnest to talk about what will be one of the most fun games of the season, regardless of what happens for the Packers. This is going to be a fun game. We'll talk about that with Lily Zhao next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And right now, NFL fans can hit it big as we head toward midseason. And yes, we are already headed toward midseason with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And if you want to place that first $5 bet on something, Packers Texans you can do that. Packers -2.5 to open this game. The over-under set at 47.5. The Packers, this line started at -3. It has moved to -2.5, but you got to pay that 120 juice on it. So I kind of wish it had stayed at 3, but here we are. So if you have a lean, FanDuel's got you. They've got you. And you can get that $200 in bonus bets. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action with daily fantasy. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You'll just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. It's the best way to get in on the action. Plus, Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money out in 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25%, so you can get even more value with your lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. The Green Bay Packers finally look like the Green Bay Packers, at least the ones that we thought we'd see coming into the season. Jordan Love healthy certainly helps. Not playing on an ice rink in Brazil certainly helps. But the Packers got a great win and now face their biggest test of the season, I think, potentially. Lily Zhao, never a test to have her on. She's here because she's always willing to grace us with her presence. Lily Zhao from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Zhao, you doing?
Peter, thank you for that gracious introduction. I always love to help out and do what I can. But I am doing well, and you're right. We'll dive into it, but it was a very impressive win for the Green Bay Packers and something that I think we expected to see this season. And I'm glad that it finally happened in week 6. So I am doing well. It's fall weather here in Wisconsin. Got the fleece on, so I'm excited. But I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. It has been it was a fun game if you're just getting to enjoy it. You and I are working, so it's a little different. Got to be taking your notes and doing all that stuff. But it is always just more fun to cover a win because the vibes. You are our vibes master here on Locked On Packers, and I felt like you were subtweeting us a little bit when you posted about it. The vibes after Romeo Doubs' performance, to have the shot of Romeo with one arm around Christian Watson and another around Jaden Reed. It was just a really, really cool moment. What did you make of all of that?
I totally agree. I think when I immediately saw it, I said, you know what? That's the perfect touchdown celebration for Romeo. And we all know he's not the flashiest guy. And Christian Watson talked about he's not really showing that much emotion. Jordan Love said the same thing after a touchdown. So just that group hug celebration to welcome him back and just say, hey, we've got your back. We're a family. We're a team. Bo Melton said he saw it and he wanted to get in on it as well. So it was fantastic to see. And I think just the way he responded, right? Getting his first 2 touchdowns of the season, just making great catches to get said touchdowns is exactly what he brings to this offense, right? And to have him back and ready to move forward from what happened last week is very encouraging. But I think that group hug really was a big encapsulation of just how his teammates felt for him. And that was great to see.
Yeah, and Matt LaFleur said yesterday, they've put it behind them, and whether or not you believe that, I guess is up to you. I think the hope is that Romeo has put it behind him. Jordan Love is not going to stop throwing the ball. We know that. Now we are still trying to figure out the future of Dontavian Wicks. He said, kind of week to week is what it seems like. The shoulder injury apparently hurt a lot. Couldn't really move it without pain. But we saw, at least for a brief moment, what this Packers offense looks like when it had its full complement of weapons, or at the very least, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed, which essentially that's your starting group, right? Coming into the year. Looks really good, Lily. Who'd have thought Jordan Love looked like the guy that we expected him to be? Was this everybody's healthy? Was this just Jordan Love is healthy? Was it something else? Is this just who they are?
I think it was a combination of all of that and the fact that they were executing and not having penalties, right? We've talked about the penalties throughout the weeks of, they were going one step forward when they'd shoot themselves in the foot, especially in the red zone. And they played clean football. Yeah, there's still a couple of penalties, but it was nothing near the amount that they've had in previous weeks. And that really just showed that when you don't penalize yourself, you're not kind of getting yourself out of rhythm. And I think that was a big aspect of it. They were playing clean football, which is what I wanted to see. Huge. And the execution was great. And I also give big props to the offensive line. They blocked their tails off and they kept Jordan Love clean. They opened up lanes for Josh Jacobs and company. And so when you're playing clean football, your quarterback looks good, you're at home, that certainly helps. And your guys are making big catches, your O-line's working, your running game's going. This is the offense I think we expected to see. And you add the creativity of Matt LaFleur's play calling, and it's just at a good level right now. And I think it can get even better, right? You look at Marshawn Lloyd still on IR, Luke Musgrave put on IR, whatever, Dontavian Wicks can come back. When you get everybody back, I mean, that's when they're going to be at their most explosive. But we certainly got a taste of what it should look like moving forward this year.
Yeah, and I said coming into the year that I think this can be the best offense in the league. Nothing that I've seen so far really disabuses me of that notion, just because this is a Packers team that even on Jordan Love with half a leg against the Vikings looked really good in the second half. But speaking of second halves, Lily, this defense in the second half over the last month, and then we include the entirety of this Cardinals game, for whatever you want to say about the Arizona Cardinals, and I know they lost Marvin Harrison Jr. early. This was a top 10 offense coming in by whatever metric you wanted to put together. And the Packers defense played by far its most complete game on Sunday. Was this the lineup change? Is this guys playing better? What do you ascribe this improvement over the last few weeks? Just getting comfortable in the system? I feel like there's a lot of potential answers here.
I think it's getting comfortable in the system and guys just executing. I think that's just what it comes down to. We talked about, the explosiveness of Kyler Murray and his weapons on offense. And like you mentioned, Marvin Harrison Jr. did go down early, but on the couple times he was thrown to, I mean, Jair Alexander held his own against that really good wideout. And so you talk about the execution, right? But I think it was just kind of, they were staying in their lanes. They weren't over pursuing. I think we've all seen that play from Javon Bullard, when he's kind of forcing Murray out, and Evan Williams making that really good tackle there as well. And so these guys kind of know that they're not going to over pursue, especially in a quarterback like Murray, who if you over pursue and you try to get him down, he's going the other way for like 50. So they were playing disciplined football, but I don't know what the difference is in the second half of this defense where they're just getting takeovers in bunches. I mean, it's just they're attacking the football. They've got great vision. And, I think they're buying into a system that Jeff Hafley has had for them. And that's maybe what's correlating with how well they're playing. But talking about the front end of this defense as well, the pass rush, while they weren't getting the sacks per se, the pressures were there.
Yeah.
And that certainly also affected Murray as well.
Yeah, Kyler didn't look comfortable the whole game, even if they don't have the sacks or the QB hits to worry about or to show for it. And it's funny you mentioned, go for 50. For most quarterbacks, that would be hyperbole. Kyler Murray did that against the 49ers, did that. So it's not hyperbole to say that about Kyler Murray. Now they're not going to face a quarterback like that this week in CJ Stroud. This is, understanding they did not look great against the Minnesota Vikings. To me, this is the biggest test because it's the best quarterback that they faced. It's probably the best group of skill players that they faced. Minnesota probably has something to say about that with Addison and Jefferson. And if Nico Collins were there, you'd probably give the advantage to the Texans. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So this Houston team, what do you think has to carry over? What is the most crucial thing that has to carry over or even get better for them to be able to slow down this Houston team?
I would say, continue with the pressure because, pressure does affect a young quarterback. We've seen it. And we saw that Texans game when they played the Bears, and they certainly made CJ Stroud's life miserable at some points in that game. So you have to get in his face, and maybe this is the week they break through and get a 6-sack game, and that maybe might be the difference. But I would say get in the face of CJ Stroud because, again, he's the one distributing the football. But we saw Joe Mixon come back last week. He looks like he didn't miss a beat. And so the ground game and that run defense certainly has to shore up as well. They certainly held James Conner in check, but I think Joe Mixon is just a different back. So he'll certainly provide a lot of matchup challenges. But when you talk about the skill position players, no Nico Collins, but you have Diggs, you have Dell, you have Ogunbowale. So those guys certainly can burn you. But I'd say pressure CJ Stroud. I think it starts with him. And if you get in his face, make his life difficult, I mean, it's going to be a good day for this Packers defense.
All right, we're going to dig into this Texans matchup coming up next with Lily Zhao on Locked on Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks makes it easy in so many ways to get tickets to all the events that you want to go to, not just sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite show easier, faster, more efficient, because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, more. Plus, the low price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price ticket in the same section in a row. 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And you can pressure CJ Stroud. This offensive line has not played well, even with, all the injuries that they had last year. We went, okay, get them healthy and they'll be better. And the answer is maybe that's not the case. We saw, as you mentioned, the Bears. And that was a pretty, ugly game, really all the way around. But the Texans have really just not hit their stride in a way. And so that's why when people say, oh, the Packers, they beat the Titans and they beat the Colts and the Cardinals. And I'm like, yeah, okay. What really good teams that were playing really well has Houston beat? Like you beat the teams on your schedule. First of all, okay, they beat the Bills. I understand that. But against some of these bad teams, like the Bears looked better against the Jaguars than Houston did. this is not the best version of Houston. Like if you're going to beat the Texans, it seems like now is the time to do it because December, January, who knows, February, like it's not crazy. They're probably going to be a tougher team to beat. So now's the time to go do it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the same for every team, right? You kind of hit your stride at maybe the midpoint of the season. That's when everybody kind of just gets it. And then you're a well-oiled machine throughout the rest of the year. So when you get them early, take advantage of it, right? And that's why I point to that Bears-Packers game, week 11. I'm like, who knows what that might look like, right? If you get Chicago earlier in the year, sure, it might be easier to win. But now things might be different then. So like you mentioned, week 6, Texans are on your schedule. Go out and beat them. I mean, really is the time to do so.
Well, and you mentioned the schedule. Part of it is this is a tough game in the midst of a stretch where these are the games you had to be winning. The Rams, the Cardinals, the Jaguars next week, or in a week and a half, because after that, it's Detroit, it's Chicago, it's San Francisco, it's Detroit again, it's Seattle, it's the New Orleans, it's the Vikings, it's the Bears. Like there's still a lot of tough games left on the schedule. If you can avoid to drop one, I guess it's the AFC one. But this is, I think this is, once you've made the, hey, we're back, this is the, hey, we're really good opportunity for a statement win against this Houston team. So how do they do it? How do they get there?
Good question. I think this is really a good opportunity for them to really shine, right? We talk about beating the teams in your schedule, but you want to have a good win against a good team to prove that we are back. And so
for yourselves as much as anything else.
Right. I want to see a continuation on offense. I think what they had going for them, especially in the first half, looked great. I mean, they were scoring at will. They were moving the ball. Matt LaFleur had a bunch of motion. I mean, lots of end arounds, lots of sweeps. It was fun to watch. And so continue the creativity. And I love that Tucker Kraft sneak, which I'm like, well, maybe break it out for a bigger game, but it was still creative.
On that one,
yeah, but it was still creative. So it's they're given room for these play callers to kind of have some creativity. So I want to see that. And also, Jordan Love has certainly stepped up his game. And I know coming, his first game back from a sprained MCL, you're playing the Vikings defense. It's not easy, but now you've got a game and a half, or I'm sorry, 2 games under your belt. So go show why you're making $50 million a year. I think Jordan certainly will do that. But I think the big key will be defensively though, because I think for as good as this Packers offense is, you don't want to let this be a shootout at the end, right? So you want your defense to play discipline. So get after CJ Stroud and make it, easier for your offense. And what I want to see though, Peter, another 2-3 game takeaway. We'll see.
You are also the takeaway manifester on Twitter, and I always appreciate that. The fact that they are relying right now on so many rookies, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Edgerrin Cooper, it's kind of crazy. Like usually this does not work out for teams that rely on this many rookies. Like you can't, and they're a top 10 defense by APA per play. They're 15th in DVOA. Those are pretty good marks for a team that right now, at least, this was the first time Edgerrin Cooper played more than half the snaps. Evan Williams played most of the snaps. Javon Bullard played nearly every snap. For those guys to just come in and contribute like this kind of stuff, like Packer fans are a little spoiled because their draft classes have done this lately, but this does not work like this usually with these guys. So how are they doing this? I guess is one question. I don't know if we have a good answer for that, but it's more just like, I don't know how we could have expected, especially Evan Williams and Javon Bullard, to play at this level.
Right. And I think it's fascinating because last year we relied on, the team relied on their receivers, their young receivers last season to step up, and they did, right? So you talk about last year, what Matt LaFleur and the offense was able to do with rookies, right? This year it's the defense. These receivers have had a year under their belt. Yeah. Look at the defense now. And so you mentioned the safeties, and it's crazy to me how good they are. But I think obviously give a big shout out to Brian Gutekunst and the scouting staff for drafting these guys, first of all, because they talked about, we saw the intelligence. We saw what this guy could eventually be. You put him in the right system with a good coach. You put him with veteran players like X and Jair, have them learn, and then they're in a good position on the field with the system to play. And they're just instinctual. They're very intelligent, and they're picking things up on the fly. So I think the fact that they can rely on these 3 rookies at different positions as well, and, move them around in the secondary too, has been crucial. But I'm pretty sure they're just going to be like, well, we expected to be this good, right? You drafted us for a reason. We wanted to go out and prove why.
I'm going to make a basketball analogy here. Tell me if you think I'm
Sure.
crazy or if I'm just
Okay.
stretching. This is what I do. Sometimes I stretch a little bit, but it reminds me a little. Do you remember early on after the Milwaukee Bucks traded for Drew Holiday? Early in the season, there's some growing pains. They're trying these different defenses out. They're doing things they were never really doing. And sometimes you're just going, what are they doing? This is crazy. And then by the end of the year, sure enough, they're locked in defensively. They're switching. Everyone knows where everyone is supposed to be. They're relying on PJ Tucker is coming in off the street and doing stuff, and they're connected. And we kind of forget about their growing pains early on. I have been thinking about that the last couple of games when this defense has looked so much better. And I'm like, all the rotations, shouldn't Edrin Cooper be playing more? How do they get Evan Williams and Javon Bullard on the field at the same time? They're not really playing as much man coverage. They're not blitzing as much as we thought. And then sure enough, last couple of weeks, more man coverage, more blitzes, more of these young players. And I'm like, this is starting to remind me of that Bucks team, and that team. I'm sure you remember, and the audience remembers too, how that season ended. They won the title. So is that a crazy comparison, do you think, to make?
Not at all. I think you talk about just the
You
process.
Can tell me. You can be honest.
No, not at all. I think it's a great analogy. I think when you look at the process of elimination, and you're working with different, you move guys around here. Okay, what works? What doesn't work? Let's switch it the next week, right? What works? What doesn't work? It's just the process of elimination for Jeff Hafley to say, okay, I tried this, maybe it doesn't work. Or, oh, I've tried this with these guys at this position. It works great. Let's keep doing it. So they're trying to tweak things. And again, nothing is set in stone on that defense. Like, one guy isn't like, this is my position for the rest of the season and I'm not moving. And so I like the versatility. I like the fact that he's open to adjusting what he does with his scheme. And I think that's a good indication of, you try things out early in the season. The guys certainly will get used to it. But by the end of it, like you mentioned, it's kind of like you have a sixth sense on that defense of, the guy's going to be there. I don't have to worry about him. I'm just going to worry about me. And that's what makes this defense flow. Like, these guys aren't having to worry about, all these different things when they can just worry about themselves and know that everybody else will be in the right place.
Defense more than offense is predicated on that trust. You have to trust that other guy is going to be where he needs to be so that you can just focus on your role. And that's why when you have guys like Evan Williams, who are going to play the role right, Javon Bullard, are like, it's just such an added value here. All right, Lily, big game this weekend. Enjoy it. And we will talk to you next week. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thanks to Lily for joining the show. Always great to talk with her. Who knows? Maybe we'll have another interview tomorrow. Maybe we'll move Expert Tuesday to Expert Wednesday. We will have a crossover Thursday, and then Friday we'll get you set for Packers Texans. No big injuries to keep you updated on right now, though. It sounds like Dontavian Wicks may not have to miss time. We'll see. Optimistic about that. Doesn't sound like they're going to make a kicker change, though. LaFleur was kind of evasive about that. We'll see what that really means. Of course, we'll stay on top of it all week and make sure you're getting the latest over at The Leap. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on all the social medias, Locked On Packers, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff, so you can stay locked on Packers.